Now to our big story tonight. Oregon lawmakers are meeting in Salem as we speak, debating bills on police reform and the COVID-19 response. And they're going to try and get it all done during a special session this week. Now, before we get into all of that, I want to remind you what happened last time the legislature tried to pass anything.
This is a failed short session.
I think this session was a failure, and we failed Oregonians.
It didn't go well. Both Democrats and Republicans called the last session a little earlier this year a bust because they got a grand total of 3 whole bills passed, 3 out of about 250 bills that were introduced. And that's because they couldn't agree on one big topic, cap and trade. So Republicans walked out for the second year in a row. But now cap and trade isn't part of the equation. It's off the table. So they're going to try all of this again with brand new bills. And this time around, they're focusing on police accountability in the pandemic. So let's dive into that. Now, a lot of things are still being worked out, but here's some of what we know is being discussed. First, bills that deal with how police officers are punished for conduct. One would create a statewide database of discipline records for officers that would be published online so you could see it. Another would make sure that officers can't get their punishments reduced if they appeal to an arbitrator, which they often do, and are still found guilty of wrongdoing. There's also a proposal dealing with use of force investigations. See, right now, district attorneys handle all of those cases, and since each county has its own DA, that's potentially 36 different approaches to justice. But Democrats want the state attorney general to investigate all use of force cases where someone is killed or seriously hurt. Now, I talked to House Judiciary Chair Janelle Bynum about that. She sits on the People of Color Caucus, which came up with a lot of these proposals and called for the governor to hold this special session.
If your outcomes are fair and people have confidence in them, then we're probably in a good place. I would venture to say many people of color in this state do not feel that the outcomes they're seeing, whether it's from the number of people who are in jail for crimes that maybe were trumped up charges, or the number of police that have gone to jail for things that we couldn't do out on the street on a regular day. When you look at the outcomes, we're saying things have to change. And if the DAs have been in charge of those outcomes, maybe it's time to have a conversation about shifting that to another office that can get better outcomes for the good of the entire state.
Now, Democrats say they're not sure what's going to go on with that bill, if it's going to move forward or not, because, again, a lot of this still needs to be worked out. But there is one thing for certain, a ban on chokeholds. And we know that this has support from both Republicans and Democrats. Now, it is worth noting that Portland police mostly banned chokeholds in 1985 after a black man named Lloyd Stevenson was killed while police tried to subdue him. But there has been a loophole. Portland police can still use a chokehold when they believe there's an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury. But this new bill would ban chokeholds in all cases outright. The next proposal should be welcome news to protesters, maybe. It would ban police from using tear gas or long-range acoustic devices known as LRAD. That's that really loud speaker, actually developed by the military and for the military, but the police use it sometimes to break up protests. Earlier this month, Mayor Ted Wheeler banned police from using LRAD, and a judge banned tear gas in the city unless lives or public safety is threatened. I will say, since that order, police have still used tear gas some nights on protesters. Okay, let's take a look now at the other focus of this special session. There's a bunch of proposals related to coronavirus, like protecting the CARES Act payments, for instance, from being taken by debt collectors, letting more students enroll in virtual public charter schools, allowing local governments to conduct all public meetings virtually, and collecting race and ethnicity data for COVID-19 testing. One thing the governor also wants to do is to make some of her pandemic executive orders into laws, like extending the moratorium on evictions, for instance, and limits on foreclosures. That's been pretty popular for small business owners, of course, who are really hurting right now.
It at least gives us a little bit of peace of mind and a little bit of break to, get ourselves together and hopefully get some funding in and see what we can do.
It's like a less of a burden on all of our backs, especially small business. I have a lot of friends in the food cart industry, a lot of restaurant owners as well that are in the same boat as me, if not even in worse position.
The governor's getting a little pushback from Republicans on this. They're saying the governor's executive orders maybe shouldn't be turned into laws. At least maybe that shouldn't be the discussion right now. House Republican leader Christine Drazen said in a statement, rather than focusing on policy bills to put executive orders into statutes, the serious budget deficit should be prioritized. And that is true. A budget does need to be passed because they didn't pass one earlier this year. The governor is actually planning to call a second special session sometime this summer. A second special session sometime this summer. Say that's 10 times fast. But they want to focus on that budget. It needs to happen. As for this session, lawmakers will start voting on bills on Wednesday. We will be sure to keep you posted on which ones move forward.